All right, we're going to move on to unfinished item number 2. Commissioners, I believe that everyone should have a copy of a contract for the purchase of 1,000 Beloit. The council had agreed a couple of meetings ago to at least negotiate a purchase price for the property. We've done that. We have the purchase price indicated in the proposed sales contract. You should note that at the very end of the contract is a addendum that specifies that the contract would only be valid upon approval by the village council. So nothing that you have in front of you is official unless the council takes action to do so.
Your Honor, motion to approve.
I'd second that, Your Honor.
Got a motion by Commissioner Gillen and a second by Commissioner Hosty to approve. Then we'll move on to discussion.
Mayor?
Commissioner Doolin.
Well, the approval to move forward was a 3-2 approval, so it was not a unanimous approval. So I would just restate my previous objections in so much as it appears as though the ordinance is identifying this property's use as a police substation. I would have hoped that over the course of the last, couple 2 months, since this was originally moved forward for negotiation, that somebody would have taken the time to actually justify the need of a police substation. The police substation will only be a small portion of this particular property. There's 5 rental units, and I don't believe that it's any of our desire to get into the rental business at this point in time. So I'd like to get some type of an idea of how we're going to accomplish this, what the costs are going to be. The purchase price that was negotiated was $330,000, which is an awful lot of money for a property that we really have no plan for. We haven't appropriated for. We haven't appropriated for the improvements to this property. I don't even know what the costs are going to be to create a police substation at this point. We have a village that's 2¼ square miles. Of that, separate, postal facility, separate cemeteries, and we got a patrol area of about 1.5 square miles. There's no place in this town that a police officer cannot get within 30 to 45 seconds with emergency lights. So locating a police substation a mere blocks away from our actual police station does not seem to be a prudent expenditure, does not seem to be thought out, certainly hasn't been quantified in any way. A lot of open-ended costs here, and this isn't what we're supposed to be doing. This is a speculative purchase based on some wishes, I guess. This isn't the Altenheim, this isn't the in-town pet motel, this is a 6-flat. If in fact there is some type of plan for a police substation, I'd like to see what the cost would be for that substation, number 1. 2, I'd like to see something justifying it. I'd like to see some other options that have been explored, which I don't believe has been explored at this point in time. And as I think through this, several years back, or a number of years back, the village bought a house in the 1100 block of Lathrop. That house was torn down, and there's a vacant lot sitting there. So if in fact we need a police substation on the south end of town, I don't understand why we would spend $330,000 to acquire a property that has to be completely renovated, has specific uses that are not conducive to a municipal government, i.e. rental properties. Are we going to rent these properties? I mean, if we need a police substation, we've got a vacant lot on the 1100 block of Lathrop that we could put a small single-story structure for certainly a fraction of what it's going to cost to renovate this property, not to mention to acquire it. Again, there's been nothing that's been forwarded to me justifying a need for this particular substation. Some ideas about blight have been floated, but I'm not really sure if this property fits the true definition of blight. If there are code violations there, then that's an issue that our code department should be addressing. If there are crime issues at this corner, it's an issue that our police department should be addressing. If these are open and notorious violations, and have been, and that's the justification, I guess my question would be is why have we allowed that to continue open and notoriously there? So I again just state my original objection to acquiring this property and would ask that we not move forward with this purchase.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
Mayor,
Commissioner Steinbach?
the way the ordinance is written, can the property only be used as a police substation?
Sure. Go ahead.
No, it can be used for any public purpose. I believe the identified use is a police substation is the basis for acquiring the property, but the village can use any property that it owns for any public purpose.
So if the purchase price is $330,000, how is this purchase price being funded? We didn't get any information, you know, with those particular.
Sure. Can I have Mike and Judy? Can both of you come up and we'll cover all those details, unless Mike can do it all by himself. I guess the very first question would be, A, can we afford it?
Yes. That's what Judy's going to talk about, a couple of the, where the money's coming from, how this is being treated on the books, briefly address Commissioner Doolin's issue of appropriation, and so our finance director will address that, Judy.
When we sold the Art Building on Madison Street, we got a lump of cash for that, around $350,000. Now, it has grown some with interest. And I just put that aside. It's a part of our cash reserves. But I was thinking that one day that this amount of money could be designated for a purchase of some other sort. So it's not official, it's just coming out of our reserves.
So, just so I'm clear, we would be paying for it with cash on hand?
Yes.
Okay.
I got a question, follow-up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you accounted for the significant losses that were incurred by the ARC? I mean, my understanding that when we took over, that was running at hundreds of $1,000s a year in deficit.
Well, that is a part of our general fund loss for the year, or there was a lot of losses those years.
Yeah,
they're not separately accounted for. No.
It's just to say that we sold the ARC for $350. I mean, what did we pay for the ARC?
That I don't know.
Roughly three. It was 3 1/4, but.
So we paid 3 1/4, sold it for $350. So we actually had about a $25,000 profit.
There was a little bit of they call it excess from sale of assets.
Okay.
Commissioner Steinbach?
Okay, so other than the purchase price that you're saying that we have this cash on hand, which is going to eat into our reserves, and what do our current reserves sit at?
Around $3,300,000.
Okay. Now, so are those reserves, is that all of the reserves in the water fund, the parking
Yes.
fund, et cetera? How about non-segregated reserves? Reserves that could offset the operating?
No, that's in total. The
Okay.
total reserves, $3,300,000.
Okay. So those are unrestricted reserves?
Correct.
Okay. So when you're looking at this property to be developed as a substation, there are no costs associated with it at this time?
I'm certain that there would be costs associated with
What would the dollar amount be for demo and reconstruction or renovation?
that we have not put together a plan yet, Commissioner. We first wanted to find out the desire of the council to acquire the property if the council felt there was a need to do so before we got to that step. If the council was to approve the purchase of that property, I doubt very much that any work would be done at this location during the balance of this fiscal year. So it would be something that would have to be addressed in the development of next fiscal year's budget, and that's when staff would get all those appropriate numbers that you're asking about.
So we're actually going to purchase it without knowing exactly what we're going to do with it. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's a fair statement, sure.
We've purchased properties previously, in addition to the one that Commissioner Doolin mentioned, where we have let that property then just sit for a period of time, where we didn't have money to improve it. The two places I'm thinking of is the gravel parking lot on Beloit and the gravel parking lot on Randolph, where we paid premium prices for that. Then they sat vacant for a very long time until just about 2 years ago, to when we made them into parking areas. And I have an opposition to this because I don't think that we're operating in a efficient manner or a well thought out manner when it comes to the costs of improving and satisfying something that we're not sure it even can do. So I don't think that we're being prudent with the expenditure.
Your Honor?
Okay. Did you need, anybody need Mike or Judy anymore? Otherwise, we can let them sit down.
No.
If we need you, we'll call you back up. Commissioner Holstein.
Your Honor, in the 8 years I've served here, we've purchased several pieces of property without long-term plans on them. The grocery store next door for expansion of this village hall, it was a once-in-a-lifetime that would pop up. Very rare that piece of property adjacent to your property opens up. 2 houses across the street that now house the employee parking lot. The 2 gravel parking lots that you refer to, which I pushed at the time that we gravelled them, I think still should be paved over and thought out, but that would be a public property issue. The pet motel, which was going to be purchased by the Village of Oak Park and tie up a section of Madison Street, which now sits one of our largest developments, very successful development, a very large tax-producing development. The Altenheim property, which we're close to a $4.3 million sale for 2/3 of the property and keeping 1/3, and a profit about $800,000. I think a lot of our long-term thinking is to acquire the property to be able to do the right thing. We currently have a piece of property at 1000 Beloit that's not doing anything for the village, except for, as Patrick said, blight, which can be debated what level of blight it is, but it's not a good piece of property. We have a chance to invest in our community, in that portion of our community, whether it becomes parking or some other reason. But I think it's smart for us to grab that piece of property now, control it, and work towards making it a better piece of property. Now, as you stated before, Commissioner Steinbach, we don't have a long-term goal. Now, when we went and had long-term goals from our parking assessment done, and the village administrator went out and had a assessor come out, take a look at those pieces of property to plan on the purchase, you voted against paying the bill because he went and had those assessors out before we owned the property. I don't see your point. You're kind of talking out both sides of your mouth. You want long-term planning, but then when it comes to previous planning of projects we try to do in the village, you vote against paying the bills. That's all I have, Your Honor. I think we have to show the vision at times and go after the pieces of property when we have the opportunity.
Commissioner Steinbach.
I'd just like to respond to a couple of things. The grocery store next door, it has not been in use for anything for over a year. I mean, that property was purchased. We had troubles with the tenants. We evicted the tenants, and we were supposed to be doing something with that. None of the planning has involved my department at all in what's going to be done there. So I understand. I brought up the fact that maybe the building department could move there, and then it was taken over as a building department project, and then it kind of just stopped, and I have no idea where that's at. So that is sitting vacant, and we were paying property taxes on it for an extended time. The parking lot on Beloit, I brought it forward to the council to have something done, and it was at the same time that we talked about the whole issue on Madison Street and what we were going to do with the parking. And so that was set on the side. That's why that's still gravel-based, because we are still grappling with what we are going to do with parking on Madison Street. We didn't want to put money into something that we knew was part of a longer-term plan. 1000 Beloit, if it was so egregiously violating village code, then why didn't the building department work with the owner to bring it up to code, or to do something to make that not a blight area or blight property?
Mark?
Commissioner Doolin.
Okay. A lot of the properties that you mentioned, Commissioner Hosty, were specific uses. The property next door was built to expand Village Hall. Those 2 lots were acquired to expand parking on 400 block of Beloit and Randolph. The property on Madison Street, was kind of unique. It's a downtown business district. It served a need. It was actually purchased to run a animal control department. That's what it was there.
That's not what it was originally purchased for.
Well, but that's what was done. I mean, an animal shelter was run there for quite some time. If that wasn't the original purpose, then I can't speak to that. As far as the other issues with being proactive, I mean, it's one thing to be proactive, I think, but what you're missing is that you can't just be a risk taker all the time. There are costs that come with taking risks, and one of those costs are the unknown. With the downtown parking, I mean, a lot of that stuff was done without my knowledge. I mean, and that's where the issue was with the appraisals. That's where it becomes a problem. I mean, even our own village attorney said several meetings ago that it came as a complete surprise that we're acquiring this property for a police substation. That was never mentioned. I've never heard that be mentioned amongst the members of this council. That came as a complete surprise, and I would think that when was that? November, December, January. 3 months later, I mean, I haven't received a stick of paper on demonstrating a need for a police substation. I mean, if that's not what we're going to use it for, then people need to just state that. But this ordinance has police substation in it probably at least a half a dozen times, if not more. And that's all I've ever heard, the use being down there. Now, I don't know how you use a second floor rear apartment as a police substation. And so I guess, what's the plan? There is no plan, and that's the problem. I mean, for us to acquire property under the guise of being cutting edge and innovative and creative. I mean, this isn't creative. As I've said before, every patrol car that we have is a police substation. There's no more than 5 cops on the street at any given time, for the most part. I mean, we'll have some auxiliaries, perhaps some part-timers. And as I've said before, I mean, if police presence is important, we adopted an ordinance to hire part-time police officers at $20 an hour. I don't have a calculator with me, but $20 an hour divided by 330,000, that's an awful lot of part-time police officers parked out in front of 1000 Beloit. If in fact there is a need for a police substation, we have a vacant lot 2.5 blocks from this location where we could build a police substation for a fraction of the cost of acquiring this property, number one. Not only that, but renovating the property. How will we man this police substation? What will it be used for? I mean, are we going to run communications down there? We can't process arrestees there. We don't have any holding facilities. We don't have any fingerprinting or live scan facilities. I mean, this is not a plan. There's no plan here. This is a $500,000. This will be by the time it's done, this will be a $500,000 experiment, and we'll probably wind up sitting vacant like most police substations do in communities that have a patrol area of less than 2 miles. So this is not a wise purchase.
Anything further? Just real quickly, Your Honor, on a completely different subject from all of the other rhetoric. The only thing I would add is that I'd like Mike to at least look into potential for financing of one kind or another, the 330 over the course of some period of time so that we don't necessarily cut into the reserves. Our reserves are getting closer to where we need them to be, but the large part of this council has always been of the opinion that long-term finances, such as parking lots and roads and things of that sort, should be spread over a period of time so that the community members who are enjoying this facility in whatever shape it may take 10 years from now are also helping to pay for it. So I'd like the administrator to at least look into that option because I know that there are some out there.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Commissioner Steinbach?
Well, if we do that, then we just need to note that that does increase the expense.
Of course,
So
sure.
just-
I understand interest.
Yeah. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Gillen?
Yes.
Commissioner Hosty?
Aye.
Commissioner Doolin?
No.
Commissioner Steinbach?
No,
Mayor Calderone?
Aye. Is that 3 yeses and 2 noes?
Yes.
Is that a first?
For today.
For today, okay. We need ordinance number.
00407.